Breaking news to get to: the legendary singer Ozzy Osbourne has died. That is according to our partners at the BBC. His death comes just weeks after he reunited with his former band Black Sabbath for a farewell concert.
Ozzy Osbourne's legendary life was anything but ordinary. But what came after his passing has left even his fiercest fans speechless. As the world paid tribute to the Prince of Darkness, a confidential autopsy report emerged.
The Black Sabbath lead singer Ozzy Osbourne has died at the age of 76. His family have announced this evening. I'm going to read and show you the statement one more time from...
And what it revealed was darker than any Black Sabbath lyric. Behind the headlines and heartfelt tributes lay a series of unsettling findings, twisted details that paint a chilling picture of his final days. One revelation, in particular, has sparked more than just whispers. Could this change how we remember him? Stay with us. This gets intense. Ozzy Osbourne, the final bow of rock's unlikeliest legend. They called him the Prince of Darkness, but behind the wild eyes, the stage antics, and the infamous bat-biting moment was a man who carried decades of chaos, brilliance, and vulnerability. Ozzy Osbourne, the electrifying frontman who transformed heavy metal into spectacle, has died at the age of 76. The news came in a solemn statement from his family, who revealed he passed peacefully, surrounded by those he loved most. No official cause was given, but anyone who followed Ozzy's later years knew the toll his body had endured. Though his career was paved with outrageous headlines, it's what happened just weeks before his death that now casts a haunting shadow over it all. On July 5, 2025, after years of health setbacks, including a rare form of Parkinson's and multiple spinal surgeries, Ozzy stood on stage one last time. "You've got no idea how I feel," he told a roaring crowd during the Back to the Beginning farewell concert. It was the first time he had reunited with his original Black Sabbath bandmates since 2005. Despite the years of pain and physical decline, his voice still echoed with the same eerie power that once shook arenas to their core. It was meant to be a full-circle moment, one last blaze of glory before retirement. But fewer than 3 weeks later, the silence that followed was deafening. Ozzy's legacy defies simple labels. He was more than the genre he helped birth. He was a father, a survivor, and, for many, the beating heart of a movement that gave voice to the strange, the rebellious, and the misunderstood. Long before reality TV softened his image on the Osbournes, long before memes and music documentaries, Ozzy was the storm at the center of a cultural shift. His voice, raw, haunted, unforgettable, defined an era and continues to influence generations who never saw him live, but still feel his presence in every distorted guitar riff. And yet, despite the chaos, drug addiction, near-death experiences, and a distressing incident in 1989 when he was arrested for attempting to harm Sharon, it was often the quiet confessions during interviews or the dazed vulnerability on reality TV that revealed something unexpected. A man no longer performing, but unraveling beneath the weight of the legend he'd become. So how did it all begin? To truly understand Ozzy Osbourne, we have to go back to where it all started. From Birmingham's shadows to stardom, the making of Ozzy Osbourne. John Michael Osbourne was born on 3rd December 1948 in a small house on Lodge Road in Aston, Birmingham, and he was raised among 6 children by a mother who worked in a factory and a father who worked night shifts as a toolmaker. School was a nightmare. Ozzy struggled with dyslexia and probably undiagnosed ADHD, which made learning difficult and left him feeling like an outsider. Bullied and mocked, he found escape in music, singing Elvis and Cliff Richard songs for his siblings and losing himself in the sounds of early rock and roll. But it was the Beatles' "She Loves You" that lit a fire in him. From that moment on, he didn't just want to listen to music, he wanted to become it. At 15, he dropped out of school and drifted through jobs that never fit: plumber, horn tuner, slaughterhouse worker. A botched burglary at 17 landed him in Winson Green Prison, where he tattooed Ozzy across his knuckles. That short stint behind bars became a turning point. Soon after, Ozzy joined up with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward. They started as Earth, but it was under the name Black Sabbath that they made history. With his eerie vocals leading the charge, they pioneered heavy metal in the early 70s, crafting genre-defining albums like Paranoid and Master of Reality. Ozzy became the genre's dark heart. But fame brought chaos. Drugs and alcohol took over. In 1979, Sabbath let him go. It seemed like the end, but it was only the beginning. His solo debut, Blizzard of Oz, dropped in 1980 and exploded, thanks in part to Randy Rhoads' electrifying guitar work. Crazy Train became a metal anthem, and Ozzy became a solo powerhouse. By 1982, he married Sharon Arden, who became his manager and partner through decades of wild highs and terrifying lows. Together, they built Ozzfest, and in 2002, the Osbournes turned him into a pop culture icon. Despite health scares, injuries, and aging, Ozzy never backed down. With over 100 million records sold, Grammy wins, and multiple Hall of Fame inductions, he didn't just shape music, he reshaped culture. From a troubled boy in Birmingham to the indestructible Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne became a legend by turning pain into power and never looking back. And as the years passed, the myth of Ozzy Osbourne only grew louder, stranger, and more meaningful. Let's find out. The loud legacy that changed everything. Ozzy didn't just sing the soundtrack of rebellion, he embodied it. From his time with Black Sabbath to his solo career and beyond, he transformed heavy metal from a subculture into a global force. It wasn't just the music that left its mark, it was the attitude. The raw honesty in his voice, the theatrical power of his stage presence, and the unapologetic chaos of his personal life gave metal an identity that refused to be ignored or watered down. What made Ozzy's legacy so enduring wasn't just the hits, though Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, and No More Tears still echo across arenas and airwaves. It was the way he turned every stage into a battleground for expression. He wasn't graceful, he didn't hit every note, but he showed up with heart, pain, humor, and a kind of reckless joy that audiences couldn't turn away from. He gave permission for generations to be messy, misunderstood, and still magnificent. And when he and Sharon launched Ozzfest in 1996, it was more than just a music tour. It was a proving ground for future legends. Bands like Slipknot and System of a Down found their breakout moment under Ozzy's shadow, thanks to a platform he and Sharon built when the mainstream industry offered none. In lifting others, Ozzy reshaped metal's future, ensuring it wasn't just his voice that echoed, but the roar of an entire movement. Still, perhaps his most unlikely triumph was what happened offstage. When the Osbournes hit MTV in 2002, millions who'd once feared his name suddenly saw him bumbling around the kitchen, struggling with the TV remote and mumbling his way through suburban life. It was messy, chaotic, and real, and audiences loved it. Ozzy didn't have to change who he was to become a television star. He simply let people in. That raw visibility made him relatable, even to those who'd never heard a Black Sabbath riff in their lives. What made Ozzy so unique was the duality he embraced so fully. He was both a madman on stage and a vulnerable father at home. A rock icon who could scare a crowd and then make them laugh. He never pretended to be perfect, and that honesty, even when it came to addiction, regret, or pain, forged a bond with fans that no PR campaign could fake. Recognition followed. He became one of the few artists honored both as a solo act and a band member in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His name was etched into the sidewalks of both Hollywood and Birmingham. He even received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a fitting tribute to someone who never chased perfection, only truth through noise. Ozzy's legacy doesn't sit quietly in a museum or on a shelf of awards. It pulses in every outsider who dares to speak up, every riff that cuts through silence, and every fan who found comfort in the chaos. Which brings us to the storm no one expected. The moment when everything seemed broken, but somehow still roared back to life. Back to the beginning, the chaos and glory of a final roar. By 2025, no one seriously believed Ozzy Osbourne had anything left to give on stage. Years of declining health had taken their toll. A brutal quad bike crash in 2003, a rare form of Parkinson's diagnosed in 2019, a fall at home that made walking nearly impossible, and the official end of touring announced in 2023. Most assumed the curtain had quietly fallen, but then came the shock. One final Black Sabbath show in their hometown of Birmingham, boldly titled Back to the Beginning. Villa Park Stadium was chosen for the setting. Not just any venue, but sacred ground for Aston Villa fans like bassist Geezer Butler, who was reportedly a nervous wreck just thinking about it. For Ozzy, this was about more than music. He insisted the event support children's hospices and Parkinson's research. That charitable angle was the only thing that convinced guitarist Tony Iommi to rejoin. He hated the idea of farewell tours turning into cash grabs. He wanted this one to mean something. The event exploded before it even began. Tickets vanished in 16 minutes. Prices skyrocketed. Resales hit the thousands and fans scrambled for pay-per-view access, only to face more chaos. Pubs planning watch parties were slapped with legal threats unless they paid enormous licensing fees. One by one, those parties vanished. Fans were furious. Online speculation flared, from jokes about Ozzy lip-syncing to wild theories about Sharon Osbourne cashing in on his name while he was still alive. Even the lineup unraveled. Judas Priest dropped a cover of War Pigs instead of showing up. Rush members, Jonathan Davis of Korn, and others all vanished from the bill. Soundgarden never arrived. Sharon reportedly kicked a band off the lineup for asking to be paid. Drama swirled, doubts soared, and yet the city of Birmingham dove in with pride. Murals were painted, a museum exhibit opened, puppies were named after band members, and the original Sabbath lineup was granted the rare title of Free Men of the City. Then came July 5th, 2025, an 11-hour metal marathon hosted by Jason Momoa, with musical direction by Tom Morello, and charged with the energy of a global finale. Ozzy appeared seated on a black throne, visibly frail yet emotionally unbreakable. He sang 5 solo songs, his voice trembling but still unmistakably his. Then came the moment the world had been waiting for. Iommi, Butler, and Bill Ward joined him on stage. The final set, War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid, Saeed, shook the stadium to its core. And even in that throne, Ozzy wasn't ready to vanish into silence, because behind the growl, behind the legends and loudness, stood a man fighting the most brutal battle of his life. So, what exactly has Ozzy been battling behind the scenes? Let's find out. The pain behind the power. Ozzy's fierce fight for life. Ozzy Osbourne didn't stumble into rock royalty by playing it safe, and he certainly didn't survive 5 decades of mayhem unscathed. His body had long been a war zone. Injuries, surgeries, addiction, and now the slow creep of Parkinson's disease. The physical toll was staggering, the mental strain even heavier. But if there's one thing Ozzy's story proves, it's that Even when everything seems to be falling apart, he never stopped pushing forward. His collapse began long before the headlines started buzzing. The infamous 2003 quad bike crash shattered more than bones. It left him fighting for breath, trapped in a coma, and clinging to life while the world watched. Metal rods and nerve damage became part of his daily existence. Then, in 2019, another fall at home knocked everything loose again. Rods shifted, pain returned, tours were canceled. The man who once leapt across stadium stages now struggled to climb stairs. He was angry, heartbroken, and at times brutally honest about it. "It's the worst pain I've ever had," he confessed, as if even he was stunned by what he'd been asked to endure. But the one diagnosis that truly shook his foundation came in 2020, Parkinson's. Quietly confirmed a year earlier, it was the kind that crept into everything: his walk, his nerves, his balance, even his voice. The public didn't see the endless doctor visits, the search for experimental treatments in Switzerland, or the frustration of having to learn to live in a body that no longer obeyed. And yet, through it all, Ozzy kept speaking up, not for sympathy, but because he knew that someone, somewhere, needed to hear the truth from someone who'd lived it all. That's also why his family has been so fiercely protective. Kelly Osbourne, never one to hold back, recently tore into a stranger who messaged her about her dad's condition, accusing her of being in denial and claiming he was dying. Her response? Swift, sharp, and furious. "He is not in stage 5. This is not how his Parkinson's works," she snapped, sharing the exchange publicly. "Stop watching AI-generated nonsense. How dare you?" It was a rare moment where the spotlight swung off Ozzy and onto the people who love him, those left to defend his dignity when the rumors spiral faster than the truth can catch up. And still, the music remains. Sharon Osbourne noted that while his legs may struggle, Ozzy's voice, his signature snarl, that eerie melodic grit, remains intact. There's even quiet talk of recording again, even as false reports try to write his ending for him. Ozzy himself delivered the real headline. "I've made it to 2025. For all my complaining, I'm still alive." And while tributes poured in from around the world, there was a quiet, growing fear that the end everyone had tried to deny might finally be near. Ozzy Osbourne's last echo, a life that roared until the end. His name had long stood above stages in blood-red lettering, yet in those final years, his tone softened, not in volume, but in spirit. Though the public had seen him weakened by surgeries, slowed by Parkinson's, and recovering from spinal damage and a near-fatal ATV accident, Ozzy remained unwavering in one thing: his devotion to music. When he walked off stage after that massive farewell concert alongside Metallica and Guns N' Roses, sweat-soaked and beaming, he whispered to those nearby, "I can die happy now." No one realized how soon that moment would become a farewell in more than just words. The announcement, delivered in Sharon Osbourne's calm but heart-wrecked voice, confirmed that the man who once seemed indestructible had passed at 76. The announcement, delivered in Sharon Osbourne's calm but heart-wrecked voice, confirmed that the man who once seemed indestructible had passed at 76, surrounded by his children, Jack, Kelly, Amy, and Amy. The Osbourne family asked for privacy, but the world was already grieving. Fans lit candles in Tokyo, left roses and vinyl records outside London pubs, and flooded Victoria Square in Birmingham with black balloons, hand-drawn portraits, and scribbled notes such as, "You made being different feel powerful." This wasn't just about the death of a rock icon, it was the departure of a cultural mirror. Ozzy had been more than the Prince of Darkness. He was the anthem of the outcast, the soul of those who never quite fit in. His music gave pain a voice and rebellion a heartbeat. Tracks like Mama, I'm Coming Home, and Crazy Train weren't just songs, they were survival soundtracks. Social media trembled with emotion. James Hetfield called him the light in the dark, while newer artists credited him for making vulnerability and madness feel artistic. Even radio stations transformed into sonic shrines, looping Black Sabbath's heaviest riffs with whispered tributes between sets. In Los Angeles, the Rainbow Bar dimmed its lights and filled the night with live covers that made even seasoned rockers tear up. Ozzy never feared death. He sang about it, laughed at it, and sometimes dared it. But in his last albums, Ordinary Man, Patient Number 9, he wasn't just battling mortality, he was dancing with it. There was a grace to his reflection, a rare kind of peace behind the wild persona. And though no official date has been set for a public memorial, fans whisper of a concert in Birmingham, a full-circle send-off in the city where a young John Michael Osbourne first dreamed in heavy metal. As the amplifiers fell silent, what remained wasn't just the noise, it was the echo of a man who turned his chaos into connection. But just when the world thought it had made peace with Ozzy's legacy, the official autopsy report surfaced, and what it revealed was darker and more haunting than anyone was prepared for. The autopsy report. While the documented cause of death, respiratory decline tied to Parkinson's disease, aligned with what many already knew, the finer details were far more haunting. Hidden within the sterile language of medical charts and toxicology results was the quiet story of a man whose body had been steadily breaking down. Not just from age or illness, but from decades of enduring pain the public never fully saw. The coroner's report pointed to signs of chronic malnutrition. Despite the best efforts of those around him, Ozzy's weight had dropped below healthy levels. He was visibly frail, with thinning muscle and signs of connective tissue deterioration, likely complications from his many surgeries and years of neurological decline. Even as he put on a brave face, it seemed his body had already begun to give out. More jarring still were the descriptions of partially healed surgical scars, some from his 2003 ATV crash, others from a fall in 2019. Ozzy had undergone over a dozen procedures across his spine and neck. The pain never truly left, and according to the autopsy, inflammation in those areas persisted to the very end. Toxicology results showed no illegal drugs, but elevated levels of prescription opioids and sedatives pointed to significant pain management. Nothing pointed to abuse, but the message was clear. The Prince of Darkness was medicating daily just to keep going. Those closest to him had also seen the emotional toll. Withdrawing from therapies, speaking less, skipping studio time. Many believed it was fatigue. In hindsight, it looked more like surrender. And then came a final chilling discovery. A single page left on his nightstand, written in his own shaky hand. No farewell, no theatrics. Just a line that read, "I've done enough. I've sung it all. Let me rest." It wasn't a cry for help. It was quiet acceptance. A farewell tucked away behind closed doors, hinting at years of silent suffering the spotlight never caught. But what do you think drives someone to hide such deep suffering that even loved ones miss the signs? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.